Kevin lay on his back as Stacey traced the circles on his palm. He was telling her how she snored on their second night together. You were snoring, Stacey, like a small piglet playing the trombone. Stacey placed a few blades of grass on his cheek. You look so angry and concerned when you sleep, like you've lost your phone. Kevin started tickling her and then they kissed for the 87th time that morning. Will you two get a fucking room, said their friends. Just meters away. You're on holiday with us too, you know. Come and eat. Kevin looked at Stacey and said he had all the meat he needed, and then he nibbled her arm. Their friends rolled their eyes and ate the food that was supposed to be shared by everybody. There was nothing to be done. Kevin and Stacey were honeymoon period, no more than 49 hours in the making. Like children given computer games for Christmas, trying to salvage their social abilities was pointless. They were welded together like the struts of a vomit-induced roller coaster. On arrival, minutes after meeting for the first time, they had snuck off to chat and stroke each other. On a group trip to the museum the next day, Stacey feigned a terrible stomachache, and Kevin stayed behind to help her. They thought they were conducting their relationship like a top-secret affair, but everybody could smell the semen in her room. Whilst their friends went and saw the sights, Kevin and Stacey stayed as one, only separating to use the bathroom. But swiftly that barrier was broken down too. They marvelled at the probability involved of how two people so clearly suited had managed to meet in a world of over 7 billion. Stacey had only come because she'd missed a connecting flight somewhere else due to a partially deaf concierge. She had changed course last minute to join her friends. She'd only got a seat on that plane because a group of travelling clowns didn't board. Their car door had fallen off and nobody was taking the call seriously. 2 weeks ago, Kevin had cut himself shaving. The nick in his chin stung, and in a fit of rage, he threw out all his razors. He grew wiry stubble that prompted one pedestrian to speak to him in German when asking for directions. His friends laughed and segued talk into beer festivals and an acquaintance inviting him on a trip, thanks to a spare room created by an absentee recovering from a smashed patella. Stacey and Kevin went over these occurrences multiple times. Neither of them was a mathematician, but they figured the probability was probably 12 million to 1. When the group announced that they were going to go to Switzerland, Stacey and Kevin decided to stay in Germany instead. Their friends drove off to the airport, shouting out the window that there was more to do in the world than stare into each other's eyes. Kevin and Stacey disagreed. And they spent hours on the patio doing just that. They sent emails to their employers saying that they were terribly ill and wouldn't be in for another week. Then they ceremonially threw their mobile phones into the village fountain, swearing that they needed nobody else in their lives. After a few nights of moonlit strolls, tickle fights, and feeding each other stiff bread heaped with salami, there was a bang on their hotel door. The manager stormed in, yelling that they had to leave because their displays of affection were offending the Japanese guests. They were evicted, hands inseparable, into the rain. Their luggage was overflowing with trinkets that they had bought each other and short love poems written on the receipts of local cheese. They had not washed their clothes in 10 days. Kevin was pocked with love bites and Stacey looked so rosy-cheeked that Any hotelier would recognise that their bed frames would need to be seriously tested. They stood homeless, but not disheartened. "This is a test for us," said Kevin, and Stacey agreed. She kissed his eyelids. Then the rain stopped and the sun began to shine. "A sign," she said, "that we're meant to be together." So they camped on a hill under the stars. They talked about their lives, each anecdote making them a tiny bit jealous that they weren't there with the other to have experienced it. As sleep took hold, they whispered declarations that every day should be like this. Their love would shield them from all the danger. They made spit pacts and blood pacts and wrote contracts attempting to define the love they felt in legal terms. Instant love, instant happiness, physical affinity, aligned philosophy. Like the perfect stars they stared at, they knew there was a divine hand in play and it needed to be respected. The next morning, they counted their savings. "It's not too bad," said Stacey. "We could live on this for almost a month." Kevin smiled at the thought of that. "But 1 month isn't enough compared to a lifetime. We can survive on bread and cheese and water so long as we have each other. But it would be nice to have more. It's an amazing chance and luck that we are together, so I think we should take advantage of that." They walked into the casino. Fellow patrons were disturbed by the sweetness of their embrace. They changed up their entire life savings into 8 red chips, and they approached the roulette table. "Which number shall we choose?" asked Stacey. How about 16, said Kevin. "That's the date that we met." She shakily put down a whole stack on 16 and held her breath. Kevin saw Stacey starting to worry at the edge of the table. It struck him that she'd been biting her nails despite his hints about the beauty of trimmed and manicured nails. She also tied her hair up to reveal a childish tattoo on her neck. Stacey gently pinched his flesh on his arm. Why did she keep doing that? The white ball began its journey, and around the spinning numbers, Kevin bit his lip. Stacey looked up and saw several hairs curling out from his nostrils. His breath smelt of cold coffee, and he was grinding his teeth again. "Are you okay?" said Kevin with moist eyes. She squeezed his hip by the way of response and silently cursed him. He asked her far too often if she was okay. She told him not to. "No more bets," said the croupier. Gamblers held their breath and observed the raggedy, weird-looking couple gambling far too much money for their age. How old were they? 19? They had to be at university or something. Their attention turned to the slowing white ball, but Kevin and Stacey were no longer interested. They stared at the green tabletop, for once their bodies not touching, and knew that wherever that white ball settled, that this would probably be the last day they would spend together.